I knew that he did drugs, but he promised he would stop when we got married. I believed him and starts yelling at me, making accusations at me, saying extremely foul, horrible things to me, that he wants to physically harm me, shoves me against the wall, and then punches a hole right next to my head. And he just started to choke and strangle me. I finally cried out in my mind, but I just said, Jesus, help me. I knew I was not going to make it. If he's not going to change, please remove him from my life. The next day, he comes in and says to me,
welcome to Intrepid Storytelling, where the brave, the courageous, the dauntless, and the resolutely fearless share their journeys of hope, grit, and transformation. These are the voices of the valiant, those who dare to rise, to dream, and to tell their truth out loud. Because every story has the power to inspire, and yours just might change the world. I'm your host, Deanna Powell.
Trigger warning. This episode contains discussions about sensitive topics that may be distressing to some listeners. Please listen with care.
With me is Michelle Troll, and I just want to welcome you to the Intrepid Storytelling Podcast. Thank you so much for being with me today. And I know that you have such an amazing, inspirational, gripping, terrifying story, but I think that there's going to be some things that you share that will help others that might be in the same situation that you have been through, that are seeking advice, guidance, maybe even some resources. So as we go along, I'll be asking you some of those questions, but I'm really excited to hear your story, Michelle. And so let's get started. Why do you want to tell your story today?
Well, first, I just want to say thank you, Deanna, for inviting me on your show and giving me this platform to share my story. As you were just asking, why do I want to share my story? I feel like there's so many women that are either experiencing something similar in their lives or have gone through similar experiences. And I want them to know that there's hope and that there's healing and that that's possible. That I also want to share my story, that in case there's anyone who is going through something like this right now or knows someone who is, I want to also share ways in which you can get yourself out of this, because no one should live in a terrible situation like I was in, and they need to know that there's resources available to get the help that they need. And so I just want to bring hope, healing, and also offer something for anyone who's going through these experiences to get out and to be safe and live their life.
Awesome. Well, so tell me first, like, how did you grow up? Where did you grow up? What was your family life like? What was childhood like for you?
Well, let's see. I was born in Southern California, and I have three sisters. We're all very close in age. I was third out of four sisters, and my parents moved us to Canada when I was about 7 years old. My mom is Canadian. My dad is American born. I'm not quite sure the reasons, because I was quite young when we moved. I think my dad was looking for work, and my mom, being Canadian, wanted to return to Canada to be closer to her family. So that's kind of how we ended up in Canada at a young age, where I spent all of my childhood years until I graduated from high school. My childhood was not a happy one. I was bullied a lot, actually. And back then, that wasn't really something that I think we have the awareness that we do now. So I was really picked on, bullied throughout pretty much like all of elementary and junior high school until my mom moved us from this small town that we were living in to another city, where kind of having a chance to sort of start fresh and nobody knew me, as opposed to being the kid that was always picked on. I could now kind of assimilate into another group of kids. So that was tough, though. That really created a lot of insecurities in me. I'm very rejected by most of my peers. I was taunted, teased every day, that kind of thing. And I was a very shy girl. So it didn't really help with my self-esteem, or certainly didn't create any boldness in me. So that part was really hard. In addition to that, our home life was not good. My parents were My dad was an alcoholic. My parents fought a lot, and they finally separated when I think I was about 9 or 10 years old. So just a couple of years after we moved to Canada, they separated. It was a very bitter battle between my parents. My siblings and I think, felt very sort of in the middle of that. Like if my dad picked us up, what was your mom doing? We get home. What did your dad say? So we were kind of in the middle of that too. And there was a lot of chaos through that time of my life. And so, yeah, let's just say it wasn't a stable home environment at all. And in addition to that, if that wasn't bad enough, my mom had been part of we'll call it a pseudo-Christian cult. And so we grew up, my siblings and I, in a pseudo-Christian cult until she left. Again, I think that was right around the time when my parents split. She also left this religious cult. And so that was helpful, I guess. But I think because part of that, it had kept us in this sort of state of one, being kind of rejected by our peers because we were so different. And two, my mom being sort of led to believe that she needed to be in this submissive state to my dad, who was mistreating her. And so when she finally left, my dad and this cult, that started to shift things in our lives, and things started to change for us as a result.
So did your dad live near you guys after they separated, or did he go back to California?
So my dad moved back to California after the divorce was finalized. At that time, you had to be separated for 3 years in order to be divorced, as opposed to now, I think it's 1 year still. Or you had to prove either adultery or physical or mental cruelty.
Wow. That must be a Canada thing.
Yes, that's what it was at that time. It's not like that anymore. Now I believe it's only 12 months. You have to be physically separated from the person, and then you're automatically divorced.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, you don't have to file for divorce just because you're physically separated.
You would have to file for divorce. You wouldn't. It's not like the other person could contest it or something. Once you've been physically separated for 12 months,
I see.
You automatically qualify for the divorce, but yes, you would still have to file the paperwork.
I see. That's so interesting because I've been through divorce, but yeah, I wanted to be divorced a lot sooner than a year.
Right.
Like,
are you kidding?
It's over.
So for my mom, 3 years. That was
wow, that's a long time.
Yeah,
and then in the middle of all of that, there's the going back and forth and feeling like you're in the middle and having visitation. Yeah, is that correct?
Yeah, that was happening. It was a really small town, so it was kind of like whatever my mom was doing, my dad was aware of. Whatever my dad was doing, my mom was aware of. And my sisters and I were kind of just trying to survive this time in our lives. We weren't really being parented at this time because our parents, I think, were just honestly too involved in their lives and what they were going through. At one point, there was a lot of anger. I'm laughing about it now, but at one point, my dad actually stole my mom's vehicle and blew it up.
Oh, not just slashed her tires,
blew it up.
Oh my gosh!
And set it on fire. So we ended up, as children, though, it meant we had no vehicle. We had to walk to and from the grocery store carrying bags of groceries and things. And we were just little kids, right?
Yeah. How old were you at that time?
I would say probably about 10 or 11, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was sort of the extent of the anger that my dad had towards my mother. But, she went out, though, on the other hand, for herself, for her protection, went out and got herself a rifle and learned how to use a shotgun, this kind of gives you a little bit of, without me going into a lot of detail, it gives you a little bit of an idea of what the dynamics were in our home life. I know for me personally, I felt a lot of constant anxiety, missed a lot of school, partly probably because I didn't really like going to school because how I was treated by other kids at school. And then also, I remember my younger sister and I, we just sleep in. And my mom would be like, that's fine, stay home, right? But on the other hand, my grades were I was the top honor student. So at the same time, through all this turmoil going on at home, I excelled in every subject and would receive all the top honor awards with the exception, this is funny now, is phys ed, which of course, if you know,
Oh my
if you know me now.
I should have started with how I know you. If we could just pause and just say that, yeah, we actually met because you and I used to compete in fitness competitions. I don't know if you still compete, but
No,
I don't. But
no.
that was such a memorable, and I feel very proud of myself for going through that process. And I learned so much about how food really plays a part in just your overall physique and energy level, and it's
Oh
not
yeah,
about going to
absolutely.
the gym as much as it is about what you're eating and when you're eating it.
100%. I think for me too, what I really thrived on during that time was the level of discipline that it took to get to the stage in the first place, but then to raise in the ranks as I did as well. And also going from this very shy girl, shy young woman, and then as I get into the rest of my story, realizing that the courage to step on stage, like that it took for me to do that. So it was really going through that process was actually something that was also a transformation, not just physically, but
Yeah.
like mentally to stand up on that stage. And
Yes.
I think for anyone to do it in the first place, honestly, it takes a lot of guts to do it.
Yeah.
You're standing there on stage going, hey, look at me and judge me
Yeah.
on my
Look at
physique.
every little inch and every little.
Right, you're asking to be judged on
Yes.
your physique, where
Yes.
normally we're like, please, don't judge me when I'm in my bathing suit.
You're trying
And
to
now we're
stand out.
actually, this is what we want you to do. So it takes so much courage for any man or woman to do that. So having gone through that, I give them
And feel like it's very empowering,
yes.
And so we're going to get to that part of your story and how it also affects your physical well-being. But I just wanted to mention that yes, we met and competed. Did you ever do it was before Tangi's natural show in Vancouver? It was the Vancouver natural show. Did you do those shows?
I did not. When I started competing was actually in 2003. And
Yeah, me too.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I competed in the States. I did actually. So what I did was the Emerald Cup.
Yeah.
Then I won the Washington State Championships that year, the Oregon State Championships.
Good.
And I competed in the Excalibur and the Ironman, which I also won. Then I went on to the Nationals, to the Junior USA's, I think it is. Yeah, I came second there. And then went into Team Universe probably 3 years in a row, came in like sixth and, like sort of in that range. So I came in second.
Well,
and third. Yeah.
You were really someone that I looked up to because of your discipline in the gym. And I'd see you, working out and then also just seeing you at the shows, but you really took it so seriously. I never got to that level, but yeah, it's just amazing. And I feel like the empowerment that comes from figuring out how am I going to get up on that stage and get them to look at me more than all the other people on stage, that is especially coming from people who are really shy to begin with. Yeah, it really is amazing.
It really was an amazing thing. I think what I found was by doing it, it was almost like stepping on stage, you became a character. So for me, that's how I felt. It felt like when I took drama in high school. And so stepping on stage, it was like, okay, this is not Michelle, the shy girl. This is the character that I've created, and that's what I would personify on stage then. And then I could go back and be shy again.
That helps.
It helped me to grow as a person and to be able to sit here and do this today, to sit in front of groups of people and speak about any kind of topic, where before it would be like the most terrifying thing for me as a young person was to walk to the front of the classroom, and anyone who's my age will know what I'm talking about, to sharpen my pencil. Of course, it's like everyone, young people listening, are like, what are you talking about? What is that? I was like, thing on the wall at the front of the class.
It's the pencil sharpener. We used to do that.
So
that's so funny. Like, and especially because you were bullied by the kids in the classroom, just going as a simple thing to go sharpen your pencil.
It invoked like just fear in me. I would realize I have to sharpen my pencil, and it would take me so much to finally get myself to stand up and do that, or to be called upon by the teacher. And the funny thing is, reading my report cards years later, my mom saved them all. The teachers would always say, Michelle always knows the answers, but she won't offer, like they were trying to encourage me to speak up more, but they're like, she won't ever offer to answer the questions she will always have the answer when called upon.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was like, nope, no, yep, I know the answer, but unless you make me tell you, I'm not saying anything, right? Anything to make myself smaller, to not be noticed, to not draw attention to myself, just to kind of, disappear here. Please don't notice me, And so, yeah, that's how I spent the first part of my life, my childhood, until I'd say I got into high school. And my siblings on either side of me, my younger one and my older sister, actually all my siblings are very outgoing. They're completely the opposite of me. And so they actually really helped me to pull out of that shyness. And then some of the friends that I started to make. So I was still really shy. It was still a struggle. And I really worked to overcome it. Like I realized this isn't going to serve me in life to stay like this, right? To be so not just insecure, but so introverted. And so I really worked hard on that. But having these siblings that would tease me or drag me along to things or push me out there to talk to people, those kind of things, it helped. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So by your young adult life and your, high school years, that you were starting to kind of get a little bit more outgoing, would you say?
Yeah, I would say I was a little more outgoing. I would say I would always say that I was still reserved. Like, so I wouldn't be somebody that's going to just go up and start talking and telling you all about myself and that kind of thing. But I could certainly engage in conversation with people on that. But I was still reserved in terms of who I was, or, my feelings, or whatever's going on in my life. I wasn't out there talking about myself that way. But
Sure.
I definitely could get out there and meet people. And it definitely helped if I had a friend or one of my sisters with me, because I always surrounded myself. I realize looking back now that the friends that I did have were always really outgoing. So I think that it kind of like I just sort of hung out in their little aura kind of thing. And by them being the outgoing ones, that drew people in, and I didn't have to go out of my way to meet people and engage conversations with them, right?
Oh, interesting. So did you have a lot of friends in high school, or just like a couple that were your
I had
ones?
a group. I would say I had a group of friends. I've always been, I would even say to this day, someone who has a select few close friends. So I had one really close friend, and then my sisters would be my best friends too. Like I said, we're a year and a half to 2 years apart. So we were all really close in age. And so my younger sister was going to high school with me at the same time. And then there was my cat's trying to get up here with me. And then there was a small group of friends that I had, but there was just one in that group that would be my close friend that I would, confide in things, that kind of thing.
That's cool. So let's get kind of partly into the story of your main event.
I graduated from high school in Calgary, Alberta, and immediately I had no plans. Though I had extremely good grades, I didn't really have any guidance from teachers or from any other adults, including my parents in life, in terms of what do you do with your life, right? So my dad came to the graduation, and I packed up and moved to California with my dad and my stepmom. And my older sister, who had graduated 2 years earlier, she had done a year-long trip to Australia. She had just come back, and we had gotten really close together. So she also moved with me. So we went down to my dad's, and there was like all this talk of, hey, come here and go to college and, do these kind of things. And I got down there and just didn't really figure out what I wanted to do right away. So I had to go get a job. It was kind of like, you either go to school or you get a job. And so I went and started working at a local restaurant, and that's where I made this big group of friends. Then it was a lot of fun, because we all kind of became like a close-knit group of friends. We were all the same age, 18 to 20-year-olds kind of thing. And that was kind of it for several months, just living at my dad's, working, hanging out with my sister, going to the mall, going to parties on weekends, that kind of thing. And then at a certain point during this time, my relationship with my stepmother deteriorated. And I'm not really fully sure to this day what happened. She was drinking a lot. So I'm pretty sure the alcohol was affecting her And she and I had actually been fairly close, right? Had a good relationship and things. But all of a sudden, she started to ignore me. And having gone through the things I'd gone through already as a child, didn't like it really impacted me. And my sister Jennifer could see what's going on, but she was like, who cares? Blow her off. Like, don't let it bother you. But it did, right? And so, for example, she would come home on her lunch break and just walk by me like I wasn't there and just continuously ignoring me. And it started to really just impact me. I was like, what is going on? What have I done? And
did you ever ask her about that?
I don't know if I did. I was 18, so I lacked the maturity to just go, hey, what's going on? And I was also very non-confrontational too. Having gone through, I think, a lot of things I've gone through, really didn't like confrontation.
I can so relate.
So I was always like the peacemaker. And I think the only thing I could think of was that for a period there during that time, I had become quite wild, like going out partying with friends and things like that. So I don't think she liked that, but I was kind of like an 18-year-old too. So it wasn't really unusual, but I think that's the only thing that I can think of was really troubling to her. The other thing was, though, over the next few years, she did become this way towards my other siblings as well. And what we started to realize was there was definitely a bit of a jealousy towards us in our relationship with our dad. So I think that was part of it too. Like she'd say, oh, you're too easy on her. And like I'd hear her talking to him about me, like, you're too easy on her. You need to say this, you need to say that. And because he didn't, I think that made her turn sort of against me, right? And then they were having their own issues, which we were fully aware of. But I think she was trying to live in this pretend world like they weren't. So I think that's what happened, was that led to me feeling more and more like I didn't belong. Like, so even though it's my dad's home, I don't belong here, right? So then when I met this, I'll go into this part. Then when I met James Kane, I was kind of already being set up to feel like, well, I don't belong here. Maybe this is where, I belong, kind of thing. So I met James out one night with a bunch of girlfriends and Southern California, Newport Beach. And we started seeing each other right away. He introduced me to his family pretty quickly too. So I was like, wow, like this guy really likes me. I don't know if I'd ever had dated anyone that I'd met their family, right? So I was like, oh wow, and they live in this really nice home in Newport Beach, fairly affluent. His friends are, so those things really meant something to me, coming from this broken home, very impoverished upbringing, that kind of thing, to you're interested in me, like, so that was I think part of what was the attraction in the first place, as well as this sense of I don't really belong here at home, nobody wants me here. So I started spending more and more time with him and less time at home. And there was a moment at the beginning of our relationship that should have been a sign of things to come. But being as young and inexperienced in life as I was, I didn't see it for what it was. So we'd been dating maybe, say, a month or 2 months maybe. And my sister Jennifer and I got invited to a house party over in Newport. And I don't know if it was him that did the invite or somebody else or whatever, but we're all going to meet there. So he's supposed to meet us there. And my sister and I get there and we're hanging out, and he's very late showing up, right? So through this period of time, we're just hanging out, we're having some coolers, and we're now surrounded. My sister Jennifer looks a lot like me. So you can just imagine two of us in a room. And except for that, she's just very lively personality and stuff, right? Okay, so we're there, and pretty soon we've got like this crowd of guys around us, talking to us and stuff. Nothing, we're just hanging out. Anyways, he walks into the scene and he freaks out, like freaks out. And I'm like, what is happening? Like I'm really shook up. It's scary and embarrassing. Like I said, I hadn't really been with him that long, but it was so embarrassing, that it's like, okay, just crawl away and hide, kind of thing. So go outside, and it kind of continues outside. My sister is just like, what the hell? Like, what a freak. What is he doing? Mm-hmm. And I really didn't know how to even react in that situation. I'd never, seen this kind of thing before.
Did you feel the need to be like, to reassure him, to try to calm
Oh,
him
for
down
sure.
by reassuring him, oh, then
Oh, no,
everything's fine. We're not doing anything. Yeah. Yeah. I
absolutely.
did the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was all about like, what are you talking about? Everything's fine. I was just waiting for you. Like, I'm not doing anything, like totally reassure him. And also too, I wonder too, I'm trying to put myself back there in that time. It's so hard to even remember those kind of details or feelings even, but was I partly feeling like, wow, he must really like me?
Mm.
And I kind of think maybe that I might have thought that, like, okay, it's strange. I've never experienced this before, someone doing this, but it's probably just because he likes me so much, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
Then you start to limit yourself and the way that you interact with people.
big time.
Yeah.
That definitely became.
That's a big warning sign. And I think that a lot of women, especially young women who like you and I were inexperienced and not really knowing, well, what do I do so that I don't, there isn't this confrontation again.
Right.
We start to make ourselves small.
And that's why I wanted to share that experience, because as small as it was in the scheme of things in terms of what he ended up doing, it was the start of things. And it's a very small, subtle sign that as a young woman, I didn't know. So I'm hoping that if any young women are watching this and they realize that someone comes in and their reaction is like that, that is not normal. It is not normal and it's not okay. And someone should not be that jealous, and to the point of embarrassment. And especially when you yourself know you're not doing anything. So then if you have to turn around and try to either just, explain yourself to them, but then also justify them to somebody else, like to my sister, well, I don't think he really meant that. You're turning around doing that. You're trying to justify their behavior. Again, those are red flags. You need to ask yourself, like, what are you doing here? This is not normal. This is not okay. And that is somebody already exerting not only dominance, like controlling behavior, because they want to control your behavior. And as soon as you start to, as you said, change your behavior now as a result, try to pacify that person or try to make yourself smaller or kind of go into a room, kind of like become that wallflower that I'd already spent most of my life being. And now they're asking you to become that again and just shrink so that you don't invoke their wrath or potentially have somebody talk to you innocently, just making conversation that, hey, it looks like you're trying to pick them up.
Well,
those are definitely warning signs.
And you could already be a wallflower. You could already be just quiet and nothing and already as small as you can be. And it's one of those things where it's like, if he's going to be that way to you, he'll be that way to you, no matter how small and how quiet and how, it wouldn't matter whether you were talking to them or not.
That's so true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that will become what you just start to exist like all the time. So they'll try to control your behavior. And so that was one warning sign that was particularly important and that stands out. I'm not sure if there were others that I just didn't pick up on or can't recall. That was definitely one that it stood out. I think because of it being so public in front of so many people. And so it was also so embarrassing, right? So then after that, I made a trip to Canada with my dad and sister. And we went up to see my younger sister graduate from high school. And then we all made trip back to California. So now what happened though was my younger sister came and my oldest sister also came, who was separating from her husband. So she came with her daughter and all came back to my dad's house, which was already a crowded situation because just before this, my grandmother had moved in. So we had Jennifer and I sharing a room, my grandmother in the other room, my dad and stepmom. But now I've got my other two sisters and my one sister with her young daughter, who's a couple years old, I think. Oh. So now it's really crowded. And so now I find myself spending more and more time at Jim's place because I don't even have anywhere to sleep, to be honest. It was like, this is, crazy situation. But so I just, whatever, I'd come home, change clothes, bring a few things and go back and then be gone for a week or two at a time, right? And so this goes on kind of like all summer. It goes on for about a month or so. And at one point he says to me, let's go to, we're going to go up to Washington. My parents have some property on a lake in Washington, and let's just go spend the summer there, right? And I'm like, sounds amazing. Yeah, sure, let's do that, right? And so we go back to my parents' house to pick up my belongings, which pretty much at this point, I'm just packing up everything I own because I'm clearly not coming back here, right? And throw everything kind of in garbage bags and stuff. And my oldest sister, Colleen, is just like, you can't leave. Like, what are you doing, right? Like, kind of, are you out of your mind? And she starts arguing with Jim about, like, you have to at least wait till her dad gets home so she can say proper goodbye. And they actually got into a confrontation with each other, pretty close to physical confrontation. Wow. Because she's confronting him saying, no, you can't take my sister with you. And no, she at least needs to stay here until her dad comes home and she can at least say goodbye. And he's like, no, we got to get on the road now. No, we're leaving now. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I know my sister's right, but I feel pressured just to go and to make things easier. So I'm like, we're just going to go, like, talk to you later kind of thing. So we pack up and we leave. And this is in the early, like, 1980s. So we didn't have cell phones, everybody. Like, I try to remind things because it's like our day of the devices that we have for communication are just so different from what we
Yeah. I mean, if you have to call somebody,
my dad, and say, hey, Dad, okay, we're on the road. Like, once we're on the road, and you're going to hear from us maybe at some point when we arrive.
Yeah, or a payphone along the way.
Yeah, right? It's like, you're going out tonight, make sure you carry 2 dimes in your pocket in case you have to call home, right? Like, that was our parents' advice. So, so we get to Washington, and we drive way out. We end up at some property that his parents own, and there's a little cabin on this property. Now, it is definitely beautiful, spectacular, but this is a small cabin with no electricity, no running water.
Wow.
No phone.
Wow.
So this begins my period of isolation. So when I talk about isolation, I'd already been somewhat isolated, I think, from my family, just not being around them and things. But this was literally pick you up, move you somewhere else where you have no ability to communicate with anyone. Anyone. You're completely isolated. I'm the only person that you will see coming and going. And so I think, again, just wanting to step back a bit and warn women that if someone starts to isolate you from your family, your friends, maybe it's not as dramatic as move you to a remote cabin in the woods where you have no power and no phone. It doesn't have to be that remote. It could be in other ways that they start to isolate you. And sometimes that's just from you covering for this relationship that you start to withdraw yourself, right? But in this scenario, what happened was he moved us there, and for the next, I think it was about 2 months, we're there. I have no way of contacting my family or anything. Finally, I'm like, can I please borrow like a neighbor's phone and call my dad and just let him know I'm okay? And so I did. I called. And
how soon after you got there did you actually make that phone call?
I don't think it was for at least a week or 2. So I'm sure, it took us a couple days to get there too. We didn't get there like right away. So I'm sure for my dad, I'm sure they're like, what has happened to her? Is she okay? Nobody knows. I knew that at some point they're going to be worrying about me, but I just didn't even know, like, how do I even go about getting a hold of them? So finally I did. I'm like, hey, I'm okay. Everything's great. Right. So then what started to happen though was, he would leave early in the morning and be gone all day and not come back till it was dark. And remember, I've got no electricity. So I would be left at this cabin all alone. I can't go anywhere. I have no vehicle. I don't even really know where I am. And I would be there all day, all by myself, and just kind of go sit out by the water. Sometimes I remember there was this mama duck that started coming around with her ducklings, so I'd go out there and feed them. So then this became my thing because, of course, every day they're coming back so I can have something to do. And
did you even have any books, or that's literally you just lay by the lake? It was summertime.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. Again, remember, I don't have internet. I'm not scrolling Instagram.
Right. I mean, you have no electricity. You can't even listen to the radio.
Exactly. I don't have a TV.
No TV. Oh my gosh.
Literally no outside world contact.
Wow. I mean, books would be the only real thing to do.
Something to do. But no, I did not have books.
Wow. And what was he doing all day? Do you know? He would leave.
I know he had a couple of friends somewhere in the area, so I suspect perhaps he went and hung out with them. I know that he was doing drugs a lot.
Oh, but he wasn't taking you to go and hang out with his friends. He would just leave you.
No, I never left.
Wow.
I left one time when we went to meet his grandparents who lived, I think, in Tacoma or something. And they were elderly, but they had us over for dinner. And that's the only time that I left the property.
Wow. Did you tell him, like, I'm so bored. Can I, like every day, you're leaving me here all day?
I don't really know, but I'm sure I was kind of like, what's going on? Like, well, where are you going? And he'd be like, oh, he's going to work or whatever, like, so that's why I couldn't come. But I'm like, sure, he was not working. I don't have a clue what he was doing. And one day he brought home a kitten for me. So that was great. So now I had a cat, at least something to keep me company. So this went on. Like I said, it was just like, that is isolation in the deepest sense of isolation. And at one point he says to me, we should get married. And I'm like, inside I'm like, what? No, like I knew that this wasn't the thing to do, but I cannot even really explain this feeling of being so powerless to say no, that I felt like I was on this runaway train and I couldn't get off it. I just had to go along with it. And I didn't go, that's a stupid idea, or maybe we should think about that, or hey, let's take our time. And we haven't known each other really that long. So the next thing you know, we're getting married on the side of this lakefront property with his two friends. And there was maybe like an aunt and an uncle or something. Someone lived on an adjoining property. But
he had an aunt and uncle that were there.
So there were like 3 pieces of property.
Okay.
That were owned in the family. And his mother, I think, had sold off those other 2 pieces and just kept the one in the middle. There was a property over here that it was like a cousin or something that owned it, but you never saw him. He was never around. That's who I borrowed the phone from finally. And then I think there was an aunt and uncle, and again, just never really saw them ever around, right? So I don't know if they lived there full time or if that was kind of more like a summer place to come stay part of the time, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So like to run to someone's house or to get help or something, you're running to basically his family, right? And then you're getting married.
After that, it was the woods.
Yeah. And then his family.
It wasn't like a very largely developed.
Yeah.
At that time. So there was like a kind of like a gravel road kind of thing to get to the property in the first place. And so, yes, the adjoining properties, the people that were living there or staying there were also family.
Yeah. So really, it's not like you could go to someone who wasn't related to him in some way to go, I need help.
Right.
Then it wouldn't get back to him. Right. Yeah.
Right. Crazy.
So these people were there for your wedding, whatever wedding.
What were they thinking? I wonder. Like, what were they thinking? Like,
I can't imagine. Whatever Jim told them.
Right. Exactly.
You're just gonna believe him. Okay, I'm talking too much.
No, that's okay. It is. I mean, it is kind of like you are. It is kind of like, what? Like, this doesn't even add up. Like, it doesn't make sense. And how could someone get it? But I think even when people hear my story, they kind of like look at me like, what do you mean? You're this smart young woman. Yeah, you had a tough life, whatever. But how do you end up in this scenario?
It doesn't. Yeah, but that's you are a smart young woman, but that's how easily a narcissist or somebody who has ill intent and is manipulative can, I mean, but also you were young, right?
I was vulnerable, and
you were 19?
Yes. When we got married, I was 19. Yeah, I think that I think that I started to give up control so quickly from some of the things that he started to do that I lost control of my own life. And then that isolation was it was probably the best tactic that he could use on me. If I had stayed in California, for example, or stayed at home or anything, or even if we'd stayed in California and if he started to talk like that, it'd be like, because somebody in my family would have found out and be like, are you kidding? Like, so, but instead move me away, isolate me, almost like someone referred to it as like a Stockholm syndrome thing. So that I'm a prisoner here. And when he comes home, even though he's the one who is my captor, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad you're home because I've been all by myself all day, right?
And then you have this idea of being in a relationship. It's really your first real relationship.
Right.
You're getting married. You're like, you have this idea of the perfect marriage and I'm going to take care of my man and I'm the only one in his life. So it's like this you see everything through rose colored glasses.
He made all these promises. Like I knew that he did drugs, but he promised he would stop when we got married. I believed him. Mm-hmm. I believed that it was that easy, that you could just stop doing drugs if you chose to, if that's what you chose for your life, that's what you would do. So there were a lot of things, a lot of promises that he said, hey, like this will change, this will become better, this will be better. So I'm like, okay, then it will be better,
Mm-hmm. And you want to believe it. Mm-hmm. You want to believe it because you know that you deserve that. So
yeah,
kind of think, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I thought, I had made changes in my life. And when I made choices to change things, I immediately changed them. So I thought everyone could do that if they chose to.
Yeah.
But, first of all, it has to be a choice. That person genuinely has to choose to do that. And then secondly, obviously, some people, it's not that easy, but you have to choose to. And he never did. So those were some of the things, right? So I just wanted to believe it. And I think, honestly, too, I just felt like I didn't have a place anymore in the world. Like, where am I going to go? What am I going to do with myself now? So there were just so many things like that just kind of put me into that position that the isolation thing, that's a huge factor. And again, I think that's another common tactic that women need to watch out for. And again, like I said, it doesn't have to be quite as extreme. No, they don't take you to some remote cabin with no running water or electricity, but they do find ways to isolate you. And that could be making you feel like you have to stay off your social media page, for example, because what are you doing on there?
That's a good point. Another thing too is wanting to get married so quickly.
Yes.
When in your gut, you're thinking, I need more time. Maybe he's convinced, maybe he wants to get married, but I'm not ready. To have somebody try to convince you to be ready when you're not, that's a big red flag.
I think that's a big red flag. That's a good point. Pressuring you to take your relationship to a level that you're not ready for, or that doesn't really follow given the length of that relationship or the age that you're at. Because I do think that when we're older, we don't necessarily need as much time. But when you're that young, you need a lot more time to mature and to get to know somebody. So feeling pressured in a relationship to, whether it's pressure to move in with somebody, pressure to have children, and your relationship is still so new that they're trying to get you to, like I said, sort of take your relationship and do something with it that you're not ready for, then I think that is another big red flag that women should also, if you're feeling pressured and it doesn't feel right, you've got the alarm bell, something going off inside you have to listen to it. I didn't, and I know I had that sense. So we got married, and now I had to phone my dad. Ooh. Tell him, guess what? I'm married. So I phoned, and I made that phone call. It was so hard. And I told, my dad, and I don't know if I talked to any of my sisters, I can't remember. And that we were coming back. So summer's over, coming back to California. No idea what we're going to do. No plans. And we get in the car, drive down, heading to California. On the way out, this is when the first serious incident took place. So literally just married, and we're driving home. So maybe it's a week or so after we got married. We're driving to California. We get out, pull over on the side of the road just to stretch and stuff. And I get out on the side and I'm stretching, kind of just like, my back's stiff from sitting in this car for so long. He comes around and starts yelling at me. Like, what are you doing? You're just trying to show off for everybody driving by. And I'm like, what? When I say yelling, like he explodes. Okay, this is like face is red, eyes are bulging, and veins are coming out. It's like explosive rage that's telling me, like I need to get back in the car right now and stuff.
Oh my
And I'm
gosh.
like, oh my God, right? Like, so I get inside the car and I just cower because I can't believe what just happened or what I'm seeing. And I'm
Just
terrified.
from trying to stretch your back out.
And I'm terrified because he's also a big guy. He's over 6'2" and I'm tiny. Like, I mean, I'm not short, but I'm very petite frame. And so anyways, so he's very intimidating physically and with his mental stature is just very intimidating. Anyways, so get back in the car, drive down to California, where we then proceed to have a second wedding with all the friends and family who come to this wedding. His parents put it on in the clubhouse at where they live. So they've got like some kind of clubhouse that they rent out. And so it gets decorated, whatever. Everyone shows up. And yeah, this is interesting because I've recently seen some video on Instagram of similar things happening to women right now. Anyways, we get married and we do the cake ceremony, only he takes cake, smashes it into my face and like pretty much shoves me down.
Oh, yeah. He pushed you down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so of course it's just
That's like, it's overboard. That's just way too overboard.
so humiliating. And
Yeah.
you spend all this time getting ready and you're trying to
Yeah.
work this off. I'm seeing these videos of women that are going through this right now where
Yeah.
guys where they're just trying to humiliate them. And then of
Yeah.
course what women are trying to say to them, like, get out. A guy that's not that is someone who loves you and respects you and honors you, that is not how they show it. And
Yeah.
so anyways, so that happened. That was humiliating, obviously intended to be. We go back to his parents' home now because this is where we're staying temporarily until we can find, because remember, we just hauled our butts back to California with whatever belongings we have in the vehicle. And now we have to find somewhere to live and get jobs and everything. So we're at his parents' home. We're staying in the guest room there. And we go out to hang out with a couple of his friends one night. And this is just right after we got married. So it's probably a week or something, right? It's not that long, maybe 2 weeks. We go out, have it. I wasn't really drinking much, maybe 1 or 2 wine coolers at that time. I just didn't drink and not doing drugs at all either. I did not do drugs. But he obviously is. And so that didn't change when we got married, as promised. A big surprise. But so we go out and something really weird happened that night. I'm just kind of almost, when you see me doing that, because I'm kind of almost remembering the night itself. Somebody had ran over a kitten in the driveway, and then someone comes in to say this kitten had gotten run over. And anyways, it's just like all these things sort of happened. One guy said that he did it on purpose. You could hear like skidding.
Oh my God.
So then, anyways, we get back to his parents' home and we go into the bedroom and get into bed. And all of a sudden, he's like, starts yelling at me and accusing me of flirting with somebody there that night. And I'm like, talking about, right? And then he starts making accusations that his friends had seen me out and stuff, which I'm like, remember, I've been with him almost all the whole time since we've been together and just spent 2 months in Washington, isolated. Like literally, where are they seeing me? Where have I been? And that I'm out with all these guys and refers to a specific race that he was very prejudiced against. And I'm like, no, this isn't true. What do you mean? Like, I'm like, what is happening, right? And he's just raging. He grabs my sunglasses and he smashes them like, you think you're so cool, right? Like these sunglasses. And again, this is another key point for women watching that I want to point out is they will destroy personal property is another thing they'll do. So sometimes before they become physical with you, they will destroy something of yours, your personal property. In this situation, for whatever reason, apparently I looked really cool in my Wayfarer Ray-Bans. He didn't want to have that anymore, so he smashed them. But then this is the first night that he became physically violent with me. And at that point, after he did that, I'm laying in bed, right? Because I've already gotten ready for bed and I'm in bed. He climbed on top of me, pinned me down by sitting on top of me, and he had my arms trapped underneath him. And he just started to choke and strangle me and he'd hold his hand over my face and then whip my head back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, while simultaneously smashing me, choking me, and, just yelling at me all these profanities and things. And the whole time I'm basically at this point just fighting for my life, trying to pull his hands off me. At some point he stopped. I'm assuming it's because we were at his parents' house that he realized somebody's going to hear something. So it finally stopped. And then that was it. The next day I get up and...
What did you do that night? Did you just then didn't say anything, or did you
Sleeping with the
say,
enemy?
if you ever do that to me again, I'm going to call the police? Nothing?
No. You know the movie Sleeping with the Enemy?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that was my life then. It was, now you just lay there quietly and don't say a word,
and
in shock, and you don't want to have a reenactment.
Yeah.
So any word you say in your defense, you question. Telling him, if I would have told him that I was going to call the police, that would have incurred further wrath.
Oh yeah.
Like, he was not a person that you make threats to. So, and actually, I don't encourage women to do that. I don't. I think if you're in a situation where someone is that violent, you need to make a plan to get out safely, and do not tell them or share any of your plan with them. Because if they find out, that could be the end of your life. But someone like him, if you made threats, you better have a gun or something.
Yeah.
So it's called, there's actually a book written about that, but it talks about how your fear is actually part of your survival too. So keeping that in mind is like, okay, this is how I'm going to survive this. Because sometimes...
So at that moment, you start making your calculated plan. Okay,
I don't think at that moment, to be honest, I was so in shock and so devastated and crushed. And remember, as much as I knew beforehand, like, this is the wrong thing to do, this is still the person that I just married, that I'm supposed to spend my life with. In my mind, we're supposed to create this beautiful life together and live happily ever after. And I've just been like destroyed and everything. This is a person I'm supposed to trust, and he's violated that trust in every way possible. Yet he's supposed to be my significant other. He's supposed to protect me and, protect me from the world. Right. But who's protect me from him? And so no, I did not think about what am I going to do, where am I going to go. I was in so much shock, so humiliated by the experience. And I just kept thinking, hey, like, what do I do next? Like, how do I get him to change?
Yeah, that's it. So mostly you're trying to get him to change by basically, again, quiet, right, stay calm, make myself small, and hopefully I won't do anything that will set him off like that again.
Right. Although literally when things happened, there was literally nothing I had done or could even... Because
you were laying there. Yeah.
Yeah. So the next morning I get up and his mom can tell right away something's wrong. Now, I don't know if maybe they heard something and she suspected, or maybe, kind of partially heard something. I don't know. She never said anything, but she could tell there was something wrong right away the next day by my demeanor, for one thing. He just was extremely quiet, head down. And I think I had some bruising, but I couldn't open my mouth to eat because of damage that had been done to my jaw.
Oh, wow.
So I couldn't even open my mouth to eat. So here I am struggling to try to have something to eat. And then I just really honestly didn't even feel like eating anyways. I had no appetite. So she took me aside and asked me if something had happened. And I confided in her that yes, something had. And I did not know his parents well, obviously, as you can imagine. We hadn't gone out that long, barely even met them. But she said to me, I always knew that if he got married someday, he would be a wife beater. And if he had children, he would abuse them. And I was like, what? Like, so she already suspected. So then she told me, I got to know her better over time. And she shared with me some of the incidents that had occurred when I think he was about a teenager. There was a few years where his parents had split up. And so she was at home with him and the younger sister. His two older siblings were adults, already moved on in their lives, married, whatever. And so she would tell me some things that he would do and that they were terrified, until she finally made him leave and go live with his dad. So anyway, so she tells me this, and of course it's like another gut punch, right? Like, I've gotten myself into. Even his own mother knows, what a monster he is. And
that is a bright red flag. If the parents are telling you there's something wrong with them.
Yeah. So later on that evening, she obviously at some point in the day tells the dad, and they kind of get into it with him a little bit. I honestly don't even remember what they were getting into. Because I don't think they were even bringing up what happened to me, but somehow they confronted him about something, and it starts to boil over, this confrontation, to the point where they call the police on him.
Whoa.
So before the police arrive, he decides he's going to leave, and he says to me, "Are you coming?" And his mom looks at me and says, "You don't have to go with him. Like, you can stay here." And but I did. Like, he kept saying, come on, right? Like, let's go. And again, I think I just felt like I don't belong here, though, right? Like, I didn't know what to do. And so
you're married.
Even though she did tell me, "You can stay, you do not have to go," I think I just felt so controlled. Like, I was so controlled by him that I left with him, even after what he'd just done the night before.
Mm-hmm.
So then right after that, we ended up getting ourselves like a little apartment down on Balboa Boulevard in Newport Beach, nice and close to the beach, so he could go spend his days surfing while I worked. And that became our life for a little bit. Shortly after we moved into this apartment, I don't think I was working yet. And he was kind of picking up odd jobs, painting, doing things, repairs and stuff like that. I had some savings at this point that I was still kind of living off of. One night, this girlfriend of mine from my restaurant days comes to visit. She comes with a friend of hers, and we're just hanging out. And he comes home. And we're sitting there. I think we'd had like a couple of wine coolers or something. Anyways, he comes home and he just starts acting like super belligerent. And this is the kind of thing he would do, just to be super embarrassing, but also intimidating, so that my friends would be like, "I don't want to come over, Michelle," like, because they don't want to be dealing with this kind of behavior. It was so uncomfortable, but also intimidating, so they're like, "Don't want to be around this." So he starts doing this. And my girlfriend's like, "Yeah, we're leaving." So she takes me aside, like on the outside when I'm saying goodbye. And she's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "What's fun, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, everything's fine." She's like, "Okay." Like, she didn't want to leave, but she's just like, "Sorry, like, I don't know what's going on here, but," and I'm like, "Yeah, no, everything's fine." Right. So she leaves. Probably not minutes after they're gone, he just goes into one of these fits of rage again and starts yelling at me, making accusations at me, saying extremely foul, horrible things to me that he wants to do to me, like to physically harm me. Then, like, kind of shoves me against the wall and then punches a hole right next to my head in the wall, right? And
I can relate to that. That is scary.
Yeah. So from that point, he went on to, it just became a struggle. Like, he'd throw me down to the ground and pick me up, throw me around. At one point, I went into we're just a small little apartment. So rushed into the bathroom trying to get away. Of course, he's right on me. And we had him this bathroom. Okay, it's a small little bachelor-like apartment. So things are kind of odd places. But we had this butcher block of knives sitting here. And I went to reach for a knife and to defend myself. But as I was doing it, all of a sudden I realized, if I do that, I'm dead. Like, he's so much stronger than me. Mm-hmm. He will overpower me, and that knife is going to be turned on me. So I stopped myself just short of doing it. But like, it was a moment where I was like, I have to defend myself. Like, I have to defend myself. And but I was much smaller, much weaker. He saw what I was doing, grabbed me, threw me onto the ground, and then there was a sink and a cup there, like, for rinsing, started just taking water and pouring water all over me while I lay on the floor, right? And then continually physical contact. And then at some point, I tried to run to get out of the house and grabbed me again and threw me. This time he pinned me to the ground and he started to choke me, strangle me, covered my mouth so I couldn't breathe. Like I could not breathe at all. I was like, I'm going to die. And he had me pinned down by, again, he'd sit his full weight on me and pin my arms. So sometimes I would get my arm out and pull his hand down just enough to gasp for some air before he would cover me again and start choking me and smothering me. So I couldn't breathe. I had smothered. And then I'd pry it down again. And this went on for a long time. Till I finally cried out. I don't know if it was audible or in my mind, but I just said, Jesus, help me. Because I knew I was not going to make it this time, that he was going to kill me. Like seconds later, he climbed off me and he went over to the phone. He called my sister and he said, you need to come pick up your sister.
Wow.
So God intervened and I know it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because someone like him doesn't just click out of a rage like that.
No, they don't. No. So
unless he knew that he was about to kill you. And then he was like, yeah, I don't want to go to prison for murder today.
Not today. Eventually.
Not today.
Buying or selling real estate isn't just a transaction, it's personal. And that's why I like to treat my clients like their family. I'm Deanna Powell with the Intrepid Home Team at Realty One Group, Orca Gold in Bellevue, Washington. With over 25 years of experience in negotiations, mortgage, title, and escrow, I deliver a true VIP client experience on every transaction, whether it's residential, luxury homes, or land. I listen first, negotiate fiercely, and protect your best interest every step of the way. With offices and partners in all 50 U.S. states, plus 30 different countries and territories around the world, you can be confident that your real estate needs will be met in every and any area you make your move. If you want expertise, integrity, and results, call me today, Deanna Powell, with the Intrepid Home Team, because every move deserves VIP treatment. I can be reached on my mobile phone 425-777-6998 or email me at team@intrepidhometeam.com. Or you can visit my website www.intrepidhometeam.com. That's spelled INTREPIDHOMETEAM.com.
I know in my heart, God saved me. Just the way that he just suddenly stopped. Because I also know that I was moments from losing my life that night. When my sister arrived, she arrived with a friend of hers. She had been out, so she showed up. She knew because he put me on the phone and I was very shaky and crying and stuff. And I asked her, please come get me. And so she came. And I remember her looking, like she said, looking around. You can see things are tossed. You can see the hole in the wall. Like, something bad has just happened here. And so she did not want to confront him because she was looking after my safety. Get me out of there was her priority. And her friend was there kind of as backup. Like they said afterwards, they were both kind of looking around just in case he switched. What do we have for weapons? Like, because, he's a big guy coming after us. Like, we need to possibly defend ourselves. But he didn't. And we left. And I remember going to her friend's home that night. And her friend said to me that her grandmother, her grandmother was there. And grandmother said, she comes up and she says, in my culture, she's Persian, we have arranged marriages. And if a man loves you, right? So a man wants to marry you, the man that loves you through this arranged marriage, you're marrying him as a woman because you're being betrothed to him by your family and arranged through the parents. But she says, if he loves you, you will grow to love him. So that a man who takes care of you and loves you, that as women, we're capable of having that kind of love, then responding with that kind of love. So she says, always marry someone who loves you more than you love him. And I was like, wow, that's good advice. Too bad I didn't know that sooner, but I definitely carried that on for the rest of my life and remembered that. So
I've heard that advice before too.
Yeah. So,
but love you more than you love them looks different if they are love bombing you, but their actions are not showing it.
Yeah.
You know?
To come to understand what really truly love is, which is something that I've learned too. And if anyone doesn't really know what love is, the best explanation for love I've ever seen and applied in my own life and will always recite to myself is 1 Corinthians 13. Go there, find out what true love is, and when someone loves you, that's how they treat you, that's how they will act. Love is patient, love is kind, it is not self-seeking, does not easily anger, all those things that he was not. And so again, like, if you didn't have that growing up as your role model to know what true love is or what a relationship should look like, go there. You'll find what love is, and that's what you should measure it against, and someone who esteems you. So love bombing is one thing, but when they're doing that, they're looking for something for themselves. What are they going to get out of this? So if I do this for her, what am I going to get in return? Someone who truly loves you is doing it in a sacrificial way. They're not looking for what they're getting. They want to esteem you. They want you to grow, and they want to see you blossom, right? Not hold you down. That's what I want.
Yeah, that's good.
So anyways, needless to say, that wasn't the end of it, because I didn't know what to do, where to go, did not receive any kind of trauma counseling or anything like that. Didn't really even want to speak about the terrifying events. I didn't even talk about it. I went to my dad's after that first night, and after about 2 or 3 nights there, my stepmom started saying to my dad, well, what is she going to do? What's her plan? And he's like, well, I don't know. And she was like, well, she's married now, so she needs to go back. Okay, how about I'm traumatized and I don't really know what my plans are. I haven't come up with a plan because I'm actually suffering PTSD right now. And so you're asking me to come up with a plan for my life when I'm actually so severely traumatized that I can't even talk about what happened to anybody. So instead, you're going to send me back to the person who just committed these violent, heinous acts on me. Well, that's what happened. I went back and went on to stay with him. So now, of course, I'm not really attending family functions. If I do, I'm going alone. He's not welcome. Nobody wants him there. Understand, it's too uncomfortable. So most of the time, I'm not even going anyways, because unless somebody picks me up, a little thing I forgot to mention is I don't know how to drive. I hadn't learned how to drive yet. And so I'm completely dependent on him to drive me places, or I take public transit. And so that also created more dependency on him and created a situation where I was, again, more kind of isolated in my situation, because it wasn't like, say, oh, just get in the car and drive away and go do something, right? It's like not really that easy. So that also left me really quite stuck in a lot of ways. My mom came, and she'd heard about what had happened and what everybody kind of pieced together had happened, because I really didn't speak about it. And I certainly didn't share, even the details that I shared today are more than I shared with my family at that time, right? So she came and she decided that we needed to get me out of here. So we came up with a plan that I would move into this, one of her friends that she'd known since we were children, to her home. And one night when he went to work, we packed up my stuff. Her friend came, loaded up her station wagon, and we went to her house. Unfortunately, my mom left shortly after that. So I was now living in this home with people that I didn't really know that well. And I felt so awkward, right? I got up, I went to work. I was now working, by the way. I'd gotten a job, was working full time. He had come by. He knew where I worked, obviously. So he'd come by, sit outside my work, or show up, take me to lunch, trying to win me back over. And there's someone at the door.
Is there somebody at the door?
Yeah, I think my husband's getting it.
We can pause.
Yeah, I'll let you pause it. Or you can just pause and edit it after.
Yeah, we'll edit it. You want to
Yeah.
go and answer the door?
My husband just got it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, we'll edit that part out.
So, yeah, so I'm working, and so he's showing up kind of like in a stalker kind of way, but at the same time, I want it to be like, oh, him trying to take me for lunch, but at the same time, I know he's also trying to keep an eye on me and know what I'm doing. He figures out where I'm staying, and so he starts coming by there. And then, in addition to this, I'm paying room and board where I'm living. And he also tells me that I still have to pay rent because I'm on the lease. So I contact the management company for who we signed the lease with of this apartment, and I tell them, look, I'm not living there. We're separated. And I'm told it doesn't matter. You're on the lease. You're responsible too. And basically lowering the credit, all this kind of stuff. So I go and pay the rent, like the whole rent. So basically what I'm doing now, of course, putting myself into this like financial crisis on top of it, right? Which again, that's another ploy that these kind of men do, is to keep you in this vicious cycle. You never have money or funds to be able to leave. And I don't know if that's changed now, but that is something that I really feel should change with the legal system, is that if a woman is in a situation like I was in, and you're on a lease, for example, like they need to take you off that lease. That shouldn't have happened to me, but that then put me in this position where I'm like, well, and now he's like, oh, I'll take care of you, or, I'm going to take you to lunch or bring you flowers or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, he truly means I'll go for counseling. That's right. This is the point when he's like, I'm going to go for counseling. That was the hook to get me to come back, because I'm like, okay, he's going to go for counseling finally. He's going to get off the drugs. He's going to get his anger issues under control. Everything will be good. So I need to go back so this can happen. Plus, I can't afford to pay rent in two places. And I feel kind of awkward living in this other family's home. This is weird. I'm a married woman, right? Yeah. Not like a college student, even though I was college age. So anyways, so all those kind of things factored into me now returning. This is the second time I've separated and we moved back. And shortly after moving back, I get pregnant. And so now that's it. I'm not going anywhere. And so I'm pregnant. And throughout my pregnancy, I was very excited to have a child, even with him. It wasn't about that. I just loved the child that I knew was growing inside me. And I felt so much love for her. And he actually, unlike what happens, I think I've heard with a lot of women who are being abused, abuse can often escalate during a woman's pregnancy. It did not with me. In fact, he went out a lot. He did a lot of drugs, that kind of thing. But he never abused me during that period of time. It did, of course, return later. Just to maybe, I don't know how quickly I need to speed things up here, but when my daughter was about a year and a half, is when I separated from him for good. So during that period of time, there was a lot of different things that happened. Violence continued, the anger, the rage. Mostly,
Did he ever hurt the baby?
There was one incident that I recall just really distinctly. A couple. They were either like negligent type things, because of course he would be under the influence of drugs and or alcohol. So for example, he would be driving erratically and speeding while we were in the vehicle. So putting our lives at risk. There was one really bad incident when my sisters actually came over. It was Thanksgiving. So I had prepared Thanksgiving meal. So they came over, two of my sisters, because at this point, like me going to my dad's and stuff just wasn't happening. And so they came over, and my daughter, I remember she was about 10 months maybe, because she's born in February, Thanksgiving's November. So she's just walking, which is like the cutest age ever. And she toddles over to his plate and to take something off his plate to eat. And he just grabbed her by her like little hands and pushed her away and told her, like, to get away, you stupid brat.
Oh my gosh.
And I just remember the look on my sisters' faces, right? We're just like, what are you doing? Right. And then there were a couple other incidents that like one incident that happened when I wasn't home. So I'm not fully sure what exactly happened. I had to kind of piece things together. I had gone out to like a women's meeting at church and thought that she'd be fine for a couple of hours. I came home, I'd gone to bed, but I go to see her in bed and she's not in her crib. And there's like vomit and stuff everywhere. And then I find this t-shirt that's like got blood on it. And I'm like, what the hell happened, right? So he tells me that he put her in the crib and she had fallen out. Well, there's no way. Like you had to have left the side of the crib down. Like she couldn't climb. He said she climbed out. I go, no, she can't. That didn't happen. So he'd obviously left the side down. She fell and then cried so hard she threw up. Then he let her just wander the house unattended. So she found under the sink in the bathroom my little big shaver and was playing with those, cut up her little finger. He saw her playing with them and thought it was okay. This is what he's telling me. This is him actually telling me this.
Yeah.
Because, it's got a lid on it. I'm like, are you serious? Like, and so of course she's able to get the lid off and ended up cutting herself, hence all the blood and everything. I'm like, in a couple of hours, like this is what happens, right? So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you'll never really know if that story is true or not. It doesn't sound likely to me, but at the same time, how without cameras or anything, you really can't know for sure what happened. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So was there like an incident that happened that then, okay, that's it? Because it seems like was so in front of your sister and your sister's like you just pushed the baby. It's almost like it's been going on so many times that now it's sort of feeling normalized. And
I think so. What happened within me was I started to make a plan. I knew I needed to leave, but I knew I needed to leave permanently this time. So I knew I needed to have a plan. I couldn't just like pack up and go to my dad's for a few nights or some person I barely know. I needed a plan in place. And so I actually started to hide money for a period of time.
That's good advice.
When I would go to the grocery store, I would keep the change, take out a little extra money and not spend it all on the groceries. And so I found this spot in my daughter's bedroom that I knew he would never go into because he never went into her closet to get her clothes or anything. So I started hiding money in there. Wasn't a lot, but I knew I needed to have something. Right. So a little bit at a time. So that was part of my plan. And I just started kind of thinking that way in terms of I knew I needed to leave. I feared for our safety, including my daughter's now. So my plan was more about protecting her at this point than even protecting myself. I had taken so much. And if I hadn't had my daughter, I don't know I would have had the strength to leave. So my strength came from having her. I couldn't have her grow up like this. And so that really was where I drew my strength from, was like, I'm not going to let my daughter grow up like this. And my fear was...
Isn't that interesting that you I can relate to this. You say, I can take this abuse. I can take the things you say, the things you do, but you start doing it to my kid and that's it.
And the other was he constantly threatened me that if I ever left him or thought about leaving him or told him I was going to leave him, because this comes to the threat part, right? He said, I will kill you and I will take our daughter and I will move so far away your family will never see her. In other words, if you think I'll go to jail and your family will raise her, that's not happening.
Yeah. Wow.
So I lived under that constant threat as well, that if I left or I even remotely looked like I was going to leave or do something, this is what's going to be your consequence. So I feared that my daughter would grow up not only without me as her mother, but not even the rest of my family, to take care of her, that he would be the one raising her. So with that constantly in the back of my mind, I knew I have to be smart about this time because I don't think I will get alive this time. While I was making these plans, keep in mind during this period of time, I'm also very devout Christian and leaning on God for my strength and protection. And I also prayed for him all the time, every day, prayed for my husband. God, please, change this man and all these kind of prayers. And finally, one day, it was like God spoke to me and said, okay, you're praying the wrong prayer. And I changed my prayer that day to, God, you know everything. You know the future. You know his future. You know my future. You know if he will ever change. You know his heart. I don't. Like, I see what he's, he says one thing, does another, whatever. I don't know what's really truly inside him, but you do. And you know if he will ever change. I don't want to live here for the rest of my life waiting for that to happen if it's never going to happen, because you know that. Meanwhile, I'm praying, God change him, but I'm like, wait, it's up to him to want to change first. Then God will come in and help transform your life, but he has to want that. So I changed it and I said, God, if he's not going to change, please remove him from my life. The next day, he comes in and says to me, I am not paying this month's rent. You're going to move in with your sisters, and I'm moving out with some friends.
Wow. He removed himself.
He removed himself. So
did he give you a reason?
He did not. I believe what the reason was for him was it was going into summer. I think he wanted to just party all summer with his friends, not have the responsibility of a wife and child at home, spend his money however he wanted on drugs, alcohol, boozing. I believe he was seeing other girls already at this point too. I believe that there was actually cheating going on too. I think he just wanted the freedom of live your life like a bachelor with his bachelor friends, right? And be free of having a wife and child for the summer. Then he thought,
sure, yeah, like he would be able to convince you to come back.
Yeah, that's what he tried, right? So when he said that to me, he of course didn't say all those things. All he said was, I'm moving out with my friends, you're moving in with your sisters.
Mm-hmm.
And
was that kind of a relief for you? Because you're like, thank God he did it first.
It was hallelujah moment.
Yeah, I've been there too. Prayer. I'm like, oh, thank God he said it.
Yeah,
he didn't have
you
to.
answered my prayer, and so quickly and effectively, because I couldn't leave him.
Yeah.
So this is funny though, over the next month, my two sisters would take turns coming over on their lunch break from work. So he worked fairly close by. And so we would pack things from the house that they would take in their cars with them.
Yeah, good.
That he wouldn't notice, right? So I'd kind of take things from the back of the cupboards, this picture, things that I thought would mean something, or maybe I could sell and get some money for, but then he wouldn't notice. Right?
Yeah.
One day he did come in and he noticed something missing off the wall or something. I think a picture. And I was like, oh, yeah, you know what? I just had my sister take that because I didn't want it to get broken when we're moving and stuff, right? So I thought it'd be safer to move it now. And he's like, okay, right. Don't really think too much about it. So the next month was kind of like that. It was honestly just biding my time. Living and sleeping with the enemy, though, was so hard because he's still there and he still wants to exert his, relationship with me and things. It's just, you want to vomit. You're like,
you're just trying to get through the day to the next day.
And I'm going to get out of here alive. And so the day that comes that he's planning to move, we had agreed upon splitting up we didn't have a lot of stuff, like hardly anything. Okay. So we agreed upon certain furnishings and things to go with whoever. And that was fine because the day comes though, and he changes his mind because I think he sees value now in certain things that he can sell and make money off of. Right. So I'm like, wait, you said that I could keep these things and this is for me and our daughter, right? I don't want to, I was trying to appeal to his sense of, what about our daughter, right? This is for her, right? It didn't matter. And he became more and more belligerent pretty soon because I was kind of challenging him at this point. He starts getting into another rage and starts pushing me around and becomes violent. And my mom was there actually at this time. And bless her heart, all 5'2" of her, she was still very strong woman. She actually tried to get in the way of him coming after me, and he just shoved her aside too. And then just kind of repeatedly would just go by and just slam me into the cupboard, this kind of thing. And so during one of the trips that he was making with his friends, moving things, the minute he left, I got on the phone to his mom, told her what was going on. She's like, call the police. So I did. And they were there, or a police officer showed up like instantly.
Was this the first time you ever called the police?
This was the first time I called the police.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
So this tall, broad police officer, perfect, shows up, and I explain to him what's going on. And moments later, Jim shows up. And of course, he's surprised. What's going on? Well, all of a sudden, he was like a chameleon. He's like, I just want to, get a couple things here. And he literally gets tears in his eyes. And the police officer was having none of it because he'd seen this kind of thing before, totally knew this was
an act.
And he reaches over to the wall where there was this large portrait of our daughter. Can I take this with me? And I'm just sitting there kind of like, yeah, okay, right. And then he tries to go hug me because he's got to get that control in there still, right? And police officer was like, step away. And he's like, you need to leave now. Like, he wouldn't let him take anything else out of the house.
Wow.
You need to leave and don't come back. So he did. He left and didn't come back. And then the police officer gave me sort of three options. He said, you can either, actually, I can't remember though if he said this before he came or after. Sorry, this part's blurry. But he said, you can either have him arrested and he will go to jail right now. You can go get a TRO, so a temporary restraining order, or you can do nothing. He says, I don't advise you do that.
What was the third thing?
Do nothing.
Do nothing.
And he's like, I don't advise that you do that. So obviously I did not have him arrested. I did not have him arrested, but I did go get a restraining order. So that was my first time going to court. And I went to, I think a couple days later, I can't remember what timing was in there, but I think it might have been on a weekend. So I had to wait till the Monday, something like that. And I went with my mom. You wouldn't believe how many women are in there getting restraining orders. It was so sad to see. And so I filled out the paperwork. You pretty much get a rubber stamp. It's called TRO, and I think it's for 1 week or something like that. And then you have to reappear in court for an actual hearing at that point. But at this point, it's something just to give a woman something very quickly, or in a situation like this where you need to have a piece of paper that you can call the police and they'll show up like that, right? That's the idea. So I went and got a temporary restraining order against him and had that served with the documents that would for him to appear in court on this date, with where we were going to also be seeking custody, going over custody and visitation, and also child support orders. So it was all kind of all in one. You're going to come to this. I had him, it was quite a beautiful thing, served on his birthday. It just kind of worked out that way. So, yes, that was on purpose. So he ended up being served on his birthday. And he didn't show up in court because, get this is interesting. His parents had already booked him a trip to Hawaii by himself. But remember, when this trip was booked, we were still together. So I don't know, that's weird.
So booked by himself while you guys were still together.
Correct. Interesting, right? I don't know. Still don't know that one. So he couldn't show up in court because of that. So he filled out the paperwork with a lawyer and said, hey, this is why I can't be here because I'm not going to be here.
So he continued it?
No. The judge was like, that's not a reason.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, because I had a relationship and my ex-husband would continue until it had been continued so many times that now, since he didn't violate the temporary restraining order this whole time that he hasn't, now he's proven that he's not going to be a threat to me. They didn't give me the permanent restraining order. And I'm like, you're going to regret that. You just did that. And what happened was the next relationship he got in, he was abusive and she pulled a restraining order. Now he's been served restraining orders for 3 or 4 different women. And the judge is like, how is he still out here? Yeah, anyway, that's how they manipulate these men.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was curious.
Well, in this situation, the judge was just like, yeah, no, that's not an excuse. So basically,
you had a good judge.
Yeah, exactly. Everything he said in my favor at that point. And then I said to the judge, am I allowed to leave the state with my daughter? Because I was concerned, because I know sometimes when there's custody issues and things like that, you could be in trouble for It's still, he says, yes, you are. You can go anywhere you want. You have full custody. And so I was like, okay, thank you. And yeah, that's
Thank
what,
goodness. So then you kind of go through the divorce process then at that point, and you were free of him.
kind of, not quite. What happened was there was a period of several months of him still trying to convince me that he would change. And like I said, once the summer was over, the party thing was over, and like, wait, what am I doing? I want control of my wife back and stuff. And I'll go for counseling. I felt guilty about not letting him see our daughter. So I started to arrange visitation that I would have to go with him though, because she would not go anywhere with him by herself. She was about a year and a half at this point. And
Did he violate the restraining order?
Well, yes, he did, but it's because of me, which apparently women do that.
Yeah.
So
that's common.
Yeah. So like I said, I was still very torn about him and my daughter not being able to have a relationship, not fully realizing, the magnitude of what was happening here at the time, and still trying to get my life together, I think. And so it's not like I went through any kind of counseling or anything at this time to really realize what was going on. And so, of course, he would say, oh, I'll go for counseling and things. And then he never would. After time went by, I realized I knew I was never going back to him after this last separation, but I was still trying to facilitate something between him and my daughter. And at a certain point, I started to realize that this was becoming dangerous to me again. And because he started to shift his behavior once again, because he could only be this way a certain amount of time before the behavior started to shift and the threats started to become real again. And the threats that if I didn't come back to him, what was going to happen to me, right? So now he started to become threatening. And the very last conversation that I had with him was what prompted me to finally flee the country. So we had just got back from taking our daughter to the park. I dropped her off at my sister. I was living with my sister still at this time. And we sat in the car because he's wanting to know, kind of like a more definitive answer. When are we getting back together? And we need to get this figured out and move back together, right? And I was like, look, you still haven't gone through counseling. Okay, sorry, it's just on me low battery. You still haven't gone through counseling. You haven't quit drugs. You need to do these things first. I'll do it when you come back. And I'm like, I'd heard that before, right? And so at this point, I'm just trying to kind of placate the situation and be like, okay. Then he just starts to shift into this mood, where he starts to talk to me very strangely and starts saying things like, this is what he says exactly. He looks at me and says, I could kill someone with my bare hands. And sometimes I think about what that would feel like as I feel them leaving their body.
Oh my gosh.
And I knew that he was telling me what he was going to do. I knew, you're telling me if I come, and if I don't listen this time, I'm dead. So anyways, I kind of just kind of well, you know what? I got to get going because she's waiting, and I'll talk to you in a couple of days. And yeah, we'll work this out. Right. So I leave, go back into my sister's home. My mom's there, and we just come up with a plan to, within the next 2-3 days or something, I think it wasn't very long, I'm on a plane with 2 suitcases, my daughter, about $300 in my pocket, and I moved to Canada.
Wow.
That was it. And, and never looked back. So my divorce actually was finalized here in Canada. I had to do it from here.
Oh, wow.
In order to be safe. Yeah.
Wow. My ex-husband, the one that continued, he said, it was after we had seen a daughter of his that he had with a previous relationship, but he was so mad at this girl, this ex-girlfriend of his, that he said, I know where I can, I could kill her, and I know I could dump her body where nobody could find it. Cause he hunts and he fishes, but he hunts in really remote land.
Right.
And he told me that. I was like, don't say things like that, but it registered with me holy crap, dude.
Yeah.
That's scary. You don't know what, nobody normal says things like that.
Normal people don't think that way.
They don't think that way. They don't talk that way.
Nor do they talk that way.
It's just why are you telling me this unless you're threatening my life too?
Which he probably was, because sometimes
exactly
I think that's what they do. It's a veiled threat. It's to let you know I could do this and
I
by my
don't doubt it.
rules.
I don't doubt that he knows because he's also in the military. He was a sniper in the military, which is why he was so good at hunting. And later on, I had found videos on his laptop of it wasn't him doing it, but it was videos he had downloaded shooting a person from a far, far away and watching them drop. And he had saved it so that, like, why did he have these videos saved on his computer unless just to watch that and relive maybe some kind of experience he had when he was in the military? But these things are not normal. And when I go to get the restraining order, I submitted these things to the judge, but because he had continued, proven that he was not stalking me or trying to contact me, they didn't give me the permanent restraining order. And I'm like, you are really going to regret doing that because this guy is capable of anything.
Yeah, that's the thing. Our legal and justice system are responsible sometimes for these things happening. Fortunately for me, and it doesn't always happen, and I think actually in my circumstance, it's even kind of a little more rare, is that I did have the support of the justice system.
You're so lucky.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, it was such a, it just really helped confirm in my heart too that God was looking after me in that sense and that I had done the right thing, because there was something that I just felt some guilt sometimes even about taking my daughter from her father, which is, it seems crazy, anyone listening to the story and the things that he did, and knowing obviously there's probably a whole lot more details that I have left out. But there's still, for some reason, you carry this guilt as a mother because you feel like, you needed to do more for her, right? And so when I got the divorce here in Canada, I had to first establish a 1-year residency before I could file. And then he was served with the papers in California. And then there was a hearing 9 months later, which he actually attended. He came from California for it. But through that hearing, the judge saw through him and granted full custody to me, no visitation, which was really unheard of at that time even. I don't even know now. It's probably still very hard to get. And a full restraining order. And he was escorted back to the border. The judge saw what a menace he was. And
thank God. And I'll just say this too, that, I can understand the mom guilt part of it. But at the same time, you're also teaching your daughter that these are valuable lessons that, like, had you known some of these things early on, maybe you wouldn't have even gotten into the relationship with him that you did. So you are teaching her how to be a strong woman, what to do in these situations. And thank God that you are doing that, because you don't have to stay with your abuser. And even though you wish you could have given her a relationship that right now it was only just a dream, because it never was really going to be what you wanted for her.
Yeah, so the divorce hearing, he came to that and I got granted my divorce that day. The judge actually said some quite eerie things in closing. And he said to him that sometimes someone who, first he said, you need to know the difference between love and obsession. He said, and sometimes someone with a temper to get up one day and he says, you tell them that they're going to do such and such. By the end of the day, they would be like, no, I would never do that. But because of their temper, he goes, I'm not going to wake up and read in the paper that this woman and her child have been killed.
Whoa.
So he's like, yeah, no, you're not. And they had him escorted.
How did he see that in him? That is.
So, he was late for the proceedings. I didn't even know he was coming. We hadn't heard anything, so we hadn't responded to the legal documents. And so we're thinking, okay, my lawyer's like, okay, great. We'll just go in there, it'll be a slam dunk. Just tell your story and it'll be a rubber stamp kind of thing, right? And then all of a sudden, they get word at the courthouse that he's calling from the border saying he's on his way. Can they please hold the hearing? So the judge is like, okay, we hadn't started yet. He's like, okay, well, we'll take this other case first. He's driven a long way. I should at least let him be heard. Okay, so this other case went on quite long though. So ours was supposed to be short, done, and this other case was going to go after, but instead that went on. So we come in, it's now quite late in the afternoon. It's actually almost like time for the courthouse to close, to end hearings, that he looks at everyone and they're like, are you okay? They've waited all day. Do you mind waiting? Everyone's like, yeah, good, we'll wait. So what he saw in him was, he starts off, okay, so today we're here to get a divorce, whatever, right? And he's like, no, Your Honor, I do not want a divorce. And he looks at him like, well, you've been separated. I think at this point, the paperwork shows 2 or 3 years. Like, he's like, so this woman's getting a divorce, whether you want one or not, right? It doesn't. So that started off right away where he just looked a little, like crazy. Plus, he hasn't seen me in 2 years. And so then through the whole thing, he just keeps like proclaiming his love for me. Remember, he hasn't seen me in 2 years. I love you. I don't want a divorce. And so he's looking crazy. And then he actually gets to cross-examine me because I give my story, and he gets to cross-examine me because he doesn't have a lawyer. So I'm like, great, this is awesome, right? But I've been told by my lawyer that I have to keep my testimony only related to our daughter, and signs of him being a bad parent, signs of abuse or whatever, anything that would relate towards her. I cannot talk about my own abuse that he's perpetrated towards me, because I'm getting a divorce. This is only about custody, and it doesn't necessarily relate. It's kind of strange, right? Because you think you abuse a mom, you don't think that's going to somehow affect the children,
Right.
But the testimony has to be only related to the relationship with the child. And so he gives me all this cross-examination. So I give all these different instances of things of his behavior and different things that make him very dangerous. And she's only 3, I think, at this stage anyway. So anyways, through that, the judge saw through him. And I honestly just thank God, because I had obviously a very wise judge, because I've heard women go through, similar scenarios and not get that kind of result. And then continuing to battle these things in court or dealing with ongoing violence towards them and things, right? And so I was just so thankful and grateful that I had someone wise that day who saw through him. And so thankfully that's how mine went. And then so he got returned to California, never to be heard from again.
Yeah. So talk about that. So how did you hear about what happened?
Well, first, before that happened, so when my daughter's about 16, I get a phone call from my mom one day. I have had an unlisted phone number all this time. I've got restraining orders at her school and everything, just in case he should try to find us at some point. So one day I get a phone call from my mom saying, hey, there's a private investigator here at my house. And I'm like, what? And he's inside your apartment? And she's like, yeah, but he's a really nice guy. You need to talk to him, right? I'm like, what are you talking about, Mom? You let this person into your apartment?
Oh
like,
my God.
Poor lady, right? No, he's really nice. I think you need to talk to him. So I get on the phone and he tells me that he's been hired by Jim to find me and to serve some papers on me. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, if it's all right with you, I'll just leave him here with your mother. And I go, well, that's not effective service. You can't serve documents on somebody else, right? And he says, I know that, but your mom has filled me in a little bit about my client. And he doesn't sound like a very nice guy. He goes, I'm probably about 24 to 48 hours away from finding you. And when I do, I will have to provide him with all of that information. I'd rather not do that. So if you would let me just serve these documents on your mom, that'll be the end of it. So I'm like, wow, that's actually, thank you for rationalizing all that out for me. And so I tell him that that's okay. And so I take the documents, and it turns out that he is seeking custody of our daughter, who's 16 now. The main reason,
out of the blue. Yeah.
Well, the main reason for that is, remember now, when I left him back in 88, there was also a child support order done at the same time, which he has not been paying. So he's in arrears now of about $100,000.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So he's trying to get custody, and he's trying to wipe out the support order.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I get more paperwork that comes into me, and he basically is explaining that the reason that he hasn't been able to pay child support is because, he was in jail. And I'm like, what? And then also because he now has 2 small children to support. I'm like, well, that doesn't really make any difference to any of us, does it? Because you support all your children. But I'm more curious now about, why were you in jail?
Yeah,
so
right.
I get all this information. And I get the paperwork from why he was in jail. And it turns out that he married 2 more times after me. And his second wife, he continued his behavior with her, stalking. And at some point, he ended up going into her apartment and setting it on fire.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, what he did was he took all her clothing, cut it up with a knife, set that on fire in her apartment. Then, so he went to jail for that, for arson. So he ended up, and according to the paperwork that I had, he went to jail, got out, served a portion of his term as per usual, got out, but then violated parole, so got sent back in. He married a third time. I don't kind of know too much about circumstances there, had a couple more children with her. And so now I think they were coming after him for this old child support order. I think that this was the state's way of trying to get control over him, because according to the parole officer, he said that he was menace to society and he was unable to control him. So I think when they discovered, hey, we got this child support order, he's in violation of it, he's in contempt of a court order, we'll just throw his ass back in jail for this, right?
Yeah.
Or start
because it was never you that said he hasn't been paying. I need him to pay me. Yeah, no, they didn't find out that way.
No, it wasn't me. So that's what was interesting, that somehow after all these years, they're trying to enforce his orders. That's me just presuming that that's kind of what happened. And so that I do think that probably was part of it, right? It was like, okay, guess what? And also too, I believe that when you're on parole and stuff, if you have child support orders, you have to pay them. Like that's part of your conditions of release, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure 100% on all that, but that's what happened. Anyways, thing goes to court. I just do like a telephone appearance, and they basically said Canada had jurisdiction over the original child custody order. So if he wants to visit that, he will have to do it in Canada. With respect to the child support order, that was a separate issue that they said we'd have to attend a different court hearing on that. And for me, I was like, I don't really care. I'm not pursuing that. If the court wants to pursue it, that was up to the district attorney anyways. That had nothing to do with me. So he would have to resolve that with them. Fast forward a couple more years go by. So that's it. Don't hear anything other than, like I said, I kind of come to this realization that, he's been married a couple more times, and there's half siblings that my daughter has too, which is one of the striking realizations, I think, out of the whole thing that I hadn't even really thought about. Mm-hmm. I hadn't carried on for years thinking about, I wonder what he's doing. I didn't. It was just like I moved on with my life. Mm-hmm. And so it hadn't even crossed my mind that he would have married or had children or anything like that with anyone else. Hence my daughter having siblings that she's related to, right? So anyway, my daughter's she's 19 now. And before this, I had always said to her, hey, she'd ask me sometimes, not very often, about her father, but I'd be like, yeah, when you're ready, we can look him up. And I said, I never really told her too much. She was quite young when all this happened when we left. So I really didn't say very much about what had happened. I certainly didn't describe any abuse or anything like that. I think after she got to a certain age, she was smart enough to know you don't just disappear like that for no reason. And you don't have zero contact with your father unless there's good reason. Definitely old enough to start to realize that. And though she didn't really ask me questions and she didn't want to know, and I didn't pursue that with her either. It was like, look at it when you're ready. If you want answers, I'm here. I will give them to you. And if you ever want to look him up, though, the one thing that I ask is that you let me find him first to make sure that it's safe. And if you do have any contact with him, please do not ever let him know. So anyways, one day she calls me up on the phone and she says, Mom, are you near a computer? And I'm like, yes, I can be. Give me 2 seconds. So I get to the computer and she's like, okay, I'm sending something to you to open up right now. And I open up my computer and there's this article with a picture of Jim staring at me. And she's like, is that my dad? Is that my father? And I'm like, yes, it is. So it's the cover of a newspaper article for the San Diego Tribune saying that he has shot a woman. And we read the article kind of together. We're reading through the details. And it's an older article because this is actually Christmas Eve that she's calling me. And the article's written in May of that year. And so we're reading through it to try to find out what happened to her because it wasn't quite clear. Just said she had been shot, taken to the hospital and that. So we start doing some research and we find a few more articles. Pretty soon we find that she did die and the gunshot wound to her neck, and that it gives more details about what had happened. He had been waiting outside of her home and shot her. She was pulling out of her driveway, tapped on the window, so she turned and then he shot her. And strange coincidence or not, I don't know, is that it was also on my birthday. I don't know what to make of that, if that is just a coincidence or if in his mind somewhere in there he did that on purpose. I don't know. But she had been a woman that he'd been having a relationship with for some time, I think. And then she had called off the relationship. He began doing the usual stalking, would not leave her alone. Finally, he called her. He kept calling. He'd call and hang up, call or whatever. She usually wouldn't answer the phone. One time she answered the phone. She told him she had just gotten a restraining order. It had not been served on him yet. And that was it. And that kind of goes back to my point about when I said earlier how I myself would not tell him my plans. I wouldn't threaten him. I wouldn't say I'm going to call the police or do anything like that because I knew I would be in more danger. That almost sometimes had to play along with him, even though it goes against sometimes. Sometimes you just want to say, screw you. Like you want to stand up for yourself and stuff, but you have to know when to do that. And sometimes that's not going to be the thing to do. Sometimes surviving and whatever that means in that situation, right? So, so he killed her and he went to jail for the rest of his life. Eventually, the homicide detective and the district attorney on the case tracked me down. They told me I was a very hard lady to find. And, so they found me through a friend. They actually still hadn't really found me. They found a friend who then let me know. So I returned their call and they said, we just want to fill in some blanks here. Like this period of time that you were with him is kind of what we're missing about his life. And we'd like to know if you can fill us in on those years. So I did in a lot of detail. And they asked me my opinion on him. And if I thought that he was truly sorry, if I thought he was someone who would be remorseful for things. And I said, no, he's not capable of remorse. Not the person that I knew. I said, he's capable of looking like he is. And I think he's fooled a lot of people over the years. But I said, he is not remorseful, and I don't believe that he's actually capable of that. I said, he, to me, fits the definition of a psychopath and doesn't even have that within him. So, and they told me that confirmed to them what they thought about him and believed. But in any event, they had decided they had charged him and they were seeking the death penalty in this case because there was, besides premeditated murder, the stalking and the laying in wait, they call it. So he'd hidden in her bushes overnight waiting for her to come out. And so that adds something extra to the crime itself. And so they had sought the death penalty, but he came and got a plea bargain for life in prison with, I think it was an additional 30 years. So they told me that in the state of California, that means he'll never get out. I guess, who knows, right? Because things changed based on the politicians and things. But he's been there for now 20 years. And, that's where he belongs.
You wrote a victim statement for that,
I did,
the sentencing part of it. Did you attend his trial?
No. So actually, I did not write. I wrote a victim impact statement that went into the file, but it was not read at the hearing because when they contacted me, they had already made the deal.
Okay. So because it was so much longer.
Yeah,
I see.
Yeah. So
I
they
see.
told me, I think they were First of all, they were having trouble tracking me down. And they did tell me when they first started the conversation, they said, we want you to know, like, we totally respect all the lengths that you have gone to protect yourself and your daughter. You did everything right.
Yeah.
And like, in fact, like, we really respect you, and we would not have contacted you if we like hadn't already made this deal. But now we just want some closure to the file to fill in this period of his life. And I think to give them a little more insight into who he was and stuff. And when you think about it, you know, he was 18 when we met.
Right.
And this was his behavior already.
Right.
And that continued on for the rest of his life. He stayed that same person.
Yeah.
So he started this way. He was a young person when he started this way. And he continued to violate, to abuse, and to demonstrate just heinous behavior towards all the women in his life. So this is a person who, you know, is obviously very sick and did not change. He did not change. He had multiple opportunities and every reason to. He had women who obviously cared about him in those relationships. He had children who, if anything, he should have wanted to be a better person for, but he didn't. And I don't care. I don't know his reasons why or not. It's irrelevant. But I think for the district attorney, they needed to know, in the sense of, this person we're locking up for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
This is the right thing. Like,
right. And if for any other reason that his sentencing might change for whatever reason, there should be some kind of a statement from you about
Correct.
That period of his time to support the fact that he needs to stay in prison.
That's correct. And that's why they asked for that, so that would go in his files. So should he ever come up for parole, which I believe, legally speaking, they are entitled to have parole hearings every so many years. I don't know all the legalities of all that, but they wanted that in his file just in case he were to come up before a parole board. Then at least there's something there. And it's long after, you know, sometimes things can happen to the people who were victimized by him. We might not be around any longer to have a voice. So that will stay on his record and stay in his file. Should anyone even entertain the thought that this person should be released, you know, he should never be released.
So, weird question, but is there anything that along the way that you would have done differently? Or because where I'm going with this is there's so many people, especially young women, who will listen to this and say, you know, what can I learn from this? Is there anything you would have done differently? And then what overall would be your message about your life that you would like people to know? Okay,
excellent questions. So I struggle sometimes with that question in the sense of what would I have done differently? Because of course, if I don't follow through that this happened and that I did this, I wouldn't be where I am today and I wouldn't have the daughter that I have. So doing things differently would mean a different outcome and a different life, and possibly not having my daughter or anything like that. So I can go back and say that initially those signs that were there, had I listened to them, obviously I wouldn't. Had I understood what they were, that would be my message to anyone who's sort of in that right now. If you're seeing those kind of red flags and those kind of signs, leave now, right? However, obviously I did not leave, and I don't regret that I stayed and I had my daughter. Because that would, again, if I regret this, then that everything else that flows out of that wouldn't have. So I can't regret. I don't look back on my life and regret. I learn from my experiences, and hopefully I can teach others to learn from my experiences too. And so those would be the things. Look out for those red flags. Watch out for those signs. Don't end up being that victim, and definitely don't stay if you're in that situation, because it can escalate to the point where you are not able to leave anymore because you're dead. Like, that's the reality in these scenarios. And statistically, you know, the statistics, I'm not sure what they are in the States, but I believe here in Canada, every 5 days, a woman is murdered in a domestic violence situation. Every 5 days, that's a lot. And so don't be that statistic. And in terms of advice for women in that situation, again, look out for those red flags when you see them leave. If you're in that scenario, take precautions so that you leave safely. If you need to get as far away as you can and move to another country, if that's what it takes, or another state, do that. You will figure things out. I know it's always hard because you're like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? your safety is priority, your children's safety is priority. All the other things, you will figure them out. And it might not be easy, but your children visiting your gravesite is not going to be easy for them either.
Oh, 100%.
So,
Yeah. You know, some advice I was given, and I can't remember if it was the judge or if it was my attorney. This was during my second divorce, because I've been through it more than once. But during that restraining order, he said, you know, whatever the worst thing that he's done to you so far, it's only ever going to be as bad or worse. It's never going to get better. If they abuse you, they know they can do this much with you and you'll stay. It'll always keep that bad thing that just happened to you will either be that or something worse.
right.
So don't think it's going to get better. It'll just keep being what it is now,
Absolutely.
or leave, right? And leave safely, of course, but don't think it's going to get better. And if they hit you, then they're going to keep hitting you, or worse,
Right.
you'll be dead.
Right.
If they shove you or spit on you, it'll always keep being that or worse. And
Right.
I've never forgotten that. Never.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, because his violent acts, his abuse towards me were extremely violent from the beginning. So a lot of women that I've met over the years, it'll escalate. And sometimes it could be, like you said, like a shove. And then maybe nothing happens for like a year or so goes by. So they're not like under this kind of violence. This, with him, the violence was extreme at the beginning. So where does it go from there other than killing me?
Right.
Right. So
it's a miracle you were able to leave safely.
It is a miracle. Yeah. So I guess back to your question about what would I have done differently? I would have, once I did have my daughter, though, if I could have done something differently, I would have left sooner. But anything other than that, I think I did what I needed to do to survive. And so that's the important thing.
A lot of people don't talk about what they've been through. And I just want to acknowledge that, I call this story intrepid storytelling because intrepid is brave, courageous, dauntless, valiant, and I really feel like your story is all of those things. And I just want to acknowledge that it takes a lot of bravery and courage to tell your story, because for people who haven't told their story, but it includes things that are scary to tell, embarrassing to tell, it can really save someone's life. And I just, I want to acknowledge that you've done something very significant in telling your story today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's important to share. It's something that for years I've bottled it up. I never even talked about it while I was going through it, and even years afterwards. It was just so hard to talk about. It was so traumatic. I think that a lot of things I think I blocked out too, right? And I think that's partly also a bit of a survival thing. But then, I had a really good friend who really started to dig in and make me share things. And I never shared even this much, even with her. But once I did, you start to realize it starts to help break that power over you, because when you're in that scenario, this silence is part of what keeps you there too, your shame and everything like that. So then you keep this code of silence with the abuser. I carried that on as well, and so it was important to break that and to share. And then as far as I think for anyone who's gone through this, a couple things that I really want to express for anyone to get out of this is, first of all, forgiveness. Not something we want to necessarily even talk about. And a lot of people probably would be thinking, well, that person doesn't deserve your forgiveness. How can you forgive someone like that? It's not about him. The forgiveness is not for him. It's, he doesn't even know. I don't have contact with him. So the forgiveness is not for him. It's for me. It's so I can go on and live a beautiful life, because I'm not holding on to the past. I'm not holding on to resentment towards this person, so that it then continues to affect me and affect my relationships, future relationships, whatever, right? So it's hard. It's not an easy thing to do, but when you realize that you're doing it for yourself, it's empowering. And I call it, I know it sounds silly to call it my superpower because it's something that is not easy, but when you do it, like it empowers you. And I was going to read something here a little bit, just real quick. What forgiveness is not, because I think this is something people struggle with, and that's why they're like, they hold on to it, right? And so it's basically you're holding on to this baggage for the rest of your life. And so forgiveness is not, it's not forgetting. Deep hurts can rarely be wiped out of one's awareness. So I haven't forgotten the events of what happened. It's not pardoning. Forgiveness is not the same as a pardon, which is a legal transaction that releases an offender from punishment for an action. He's not pardoned. He's, in fact, he's being punished for what he's done, and that's justifiable. It's not reconciliation. Reconciliation takes two persons, but an injured party can forgive an offender without reconciliation. It's not condoning. It does not necessarily excuse bad or hurtful behavior. So it's not saying it's okay what he did just because I forgive him. It's not dismissing. It doesn't pass off an offense as unimportant or insignificant. And rather, it takes the offense seriously. Hence the reason you need to forgive. If it wasn't serious, why would you need to forgive, right? And it's not a vague notion of tolerance. Doesn't stand by and just tolerate an offense. I think that that's a low-grade distortion of forgiveness that sweeps the real issues in life under the rug. So I just say that it's a forgiveness. Forgiveness is a gift to ourselves, and it's freedom. And so I hope for anyone who's struggling with that they'll hear that and realize, okay, it's for you. It's not for him.
Yeah, I think it's a release of the anger. And and for a lot of people, anger, when you have residual anger, it can be toxic, like a poison inside of you. And anger can be different than boundaries. Okay, so you're forgiving someone who's hurt you does not mean that you have to continue having them in your life or even, whatsoever. It's the release of the anger part. Still okay to keep the boundary. That's the healthy part that keeps you separated from the bad toxicity. Anger can really poison your life. I think that's
it's basically saying too, I'm no longer responsible for what happens to you. You're responsible for what happens to you. I'm not taking that on by being angry, by seeking retribution or anything like that. You're in God's hands, and whatever happens, that's between you and him. And I release that, and I'm free because of that, right? So I think that's important. And then because I think that that's when you find your healing too. So that was the other part, is I want to bring a message of hope and healing, because you go through these kind of experiences, and especially in this situation, where you're being abused by someone who is supposed to be taken care of, who you put your trust in, and maybe thought you were going to have this wonderful lifetime with this person, whatever it is, and that's shattered. And so you need to be able to heal from that, and you need to heal from the trauma. When you've gone through the experience I've gone through, I want women to know you can have healing and you can have a good life, and I want them to have hope for that. If they're in the experience right now, just hold on to hope. And it will get better. You're going to have to leave first, though. You got to leave and do it safely. So those are kind of like the main things that I hope that someone will get out of this, is don't stay in an unsafe situation. Like you said, it's not going to get better. It can for periods of time.
It's the hard thing to do, but it's the right thing to do, to leave. Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be harder for your children when you're not around. So,
the alternative would be a lot worse, for sure.
Yeah. For sure. I remember writing when I was competing, circling back in my biography. So sometimes, I don't know if you ever had to do this for a contest that asked you to write a little biography. I had to write a biography for something. I was being featured in some online magazine thing or something. And so in my biography, I briefly wrote about, very briefly, like a paragraph about my first marriage and how I had to leave because I didn't want my daughter visiting my graveside and her father in jail. That was a couple of years before he killed this woman that I wrote that. So then I was like, wow, like that. To me too, it was really, it's sad to say, but it was like confirmation that could have been, but probably would have been me. And so just knowing that, like I knew that at that time, and I listened, because I ignored so many signs for so long, or, hoped things would get better. And so I ignored those signs. But this time I listened, and it was the right thing to do.
Yeah,
And
thank God.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, so just to wrap up, I know that you are in the middle of writing a book. You don't have a title yet, but you will have a book out eventually.
Yes.
And I think that people will, one, probably want to read your book. And also, if there's anyone who is curious or has questions, would like to reach out to you or even just follow you, how can they get a hold of you? Or do you have an Instagram page that they can follow?
Right now, I think probably the easiest way would be just to contact me on my Instagram. You can send me a message there. And probably, I think we'll be highlighting some clips there too once this gets aired. So I'll put some clips up as well. And so that's Michelle Lisa Fit.
Michelle Lisa Fit.
Yeah. MICHELLELISA Fit. And yeah, that's where you can definitely send me a message. Anyone who's going through something like this, you are looking for some support, or if you found this message encouraging for yourself, I'd love to hear from you. And again, if you're in the midst of this, whether you're here in Canada, US, I don't know what the audience will be, but there are usually some kind of resources available in your area and where you live that you can look to. If you don't have someone in your life that you can trust to talk to, a friend, a family member, there are, women's shelters, there are different resources available depending, again, where you're at. So I encourage you, don't stay in this situation.
I'll put some resources too, just the ones that I know personally in the show notes. And yeah, now I just want to put a little teaser out because this is just part one. Your fitness journey is going to be part two. So I hope that people will come back for part two to listen to your story about that, because you've overcome some health issues with your fitness journey. And I just think that it's just so incredible. Wow. I hope that people that will need to hear that story will get something out of that one as well. So.
Yeah, I hope so too, because I think that this is kind of just part one of my life. And then moving into my health and fitness journey with everything that I had to overcome to get to where I am today is a lot. And I think it'll be very encouraging and inspiring to whoever's watching, and in kind of a different way. It's a little bit of a different journey, I guess, so to speak, but it does tie into this is sort of how my journey started, and that where I'm at today is quite a different person from where I was, not just based on being someone leaving a domestic violence situation and surviving that, but then following that and going into some very chronic health issues in the following years, and how I managed to overcome them and become the person that I am today.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to being able to share that too. And I think I
think your life has been saved several times so far.
It has been. Actually, there's one thing that I want to share on that note, because you brought that. I just want to say this. This was something that I repeatedly went to over the years, but especially during the darkest times of my life. And it's just going to read one small part of it, but it's Psalm 91. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. And I didn't really need to read that because I have it memorized by heart, but the whole passage is just such an encouragement to know that I'm in God's shadow. I'm sheltered by Him. And, that's what
I love that. I really appreciate your time today.
We've
been here almost 3 hours.
I know.
I love it. I love these long forms.
I think I can do both parts today I thought I'll be worn out after 1 hour. Here I am 3 hours.
Yeah. I just really appreciate all the time you've spent with me so far. And I know so many people will be inspired and it will help save some lives. So I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
If today's story moved or inspired you, please take a moment to share this episode with someone who needs a spark of courage. Your 5-star rating and short review help these brave, courageous, and resolutely fearless stories reach even more hearts. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss an episode of Intrepid Storytelling. Thanks for listening.